Just go around the table and so you can do a roll call that way. I'll start. Here we go.
Good morning, Mark Bell, Hillsborough.
Amy Tyler, Orange County.
Hey, I'm Jason.
Javier and
Kuczynski, Triangle West.
Karen Howard, Chatham County.
Nizar Alam, Durham County.
Don't need to read your ethics reminder, but just a reminder of that. And adjustments to the agenda.
No, sure.
Thank you. And then
I'm not aware that we had anyone sign up.
perfect. Our first order of business then is under reports from staff or legislative update.
Good morning, Andy. Have you been able to join us yet?
Okay, well, I'm just going and going to report from TPO staff.
Great. I am printing out the latest copies of the financial reporting from May. We have submitted the invoice and we have gotten some additional comments back from DOT. We are, however, going to bump over the 30-day deadline, so we will follow up with Transportation Planning Division about that processing. The other thing I'd like to add about our group is we will have 2 promotions going into effect on June 21st. David will be promoted to principal planner on the planning team, and Eve will be promoted to transportation modeler on the modeling team. So, job well done.
Okay, and do we have Andy from our legislative update yet?
I'm texting in. Today is the supposed deadline for budget on Jones Street. So,
my only update is that we still haven't figured out membership for the subcommittee on governance. So look for that. I know a couple of you. I've had a couple of conversations with individuals, and Chair Now isn't here today, so we will have to figure that out in August. But you might get a phone call during your summer break. So that's all that we have. And then just a reminder that we are going into closed session after this meeting.
great. I texted him. I'll keep my eyes peeled for when he's able to join.
Okay, perfect. Next up is technical committee chair report.
I don't have any report today, thanks.
Thank you. And then we have our NCDOT transportation reports. Is board member Mathis online? She is. Okay. Becca Gallus.
Yeah. Hey, good morning, everyone. Two quick updates. Number one, you may have noticed that May was no mow May in France DOT non-controlled access facilities. We are working to catch up, thankfully, well, not thankfully because it didn't rain, which is a different challenge, right? So we didn't see a lot of grass growth, but if you're having any issues with vegetation, please let us know as we work to prioritize catching up on the no mow May cycles. The other thing to note is that we have updated our drivenc.gov platform, particularly with both TIMS and our drivenc.gov platform, where you can go to get alerts about road closures. Previously, you could only do county level notifications, so now there's some additional functionality to be able to target specific areas like a municipal boundary. So if you have any questions about our new drivenc or TIMS platform, I'm happy to answer any questions as well or connect you to resources, but we're really excited to continue to enhance the information we can provide our municipalities and our partners to assist with road closures and road information.
Thank you. Division 7?
Not a lot to report. Just take note of our updates report in the packet. Items read of what changed since the last report. We've added a couple new projects to the report. One being Cameron Avenue from South Merritt Road to 86. That is the construction of bike lanes and the cycle path. That's project BL 101. Another project we added to projects under development are the SS 6207BM project, Weaver Dairy Road. It's a signal modification project. As far as under construction, there are two projects highlighted in green. Those are finished, completed, have complete construction now. One of those is surfacing project, 15 secondary roads in Orange County. The other one is a project to upgrade curb ramps, BO 247A. That one is also completed. So those two projects are completed, and we continue to make good progress on the I-40. 95 I-40 in Orange County widening project. That one's still progressing nicely. It's at 78% right now. And we are working on the concrete pavement. Resuming that. Actually, we have resumed the work on the concrete pavement. So if you see any projects you wanted any further updates on, just let me know. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Next up, Division 8. And then do we have anyone from Transportation Planning Division?
No.
Okay. And then do we have anyone from Integrated Mobility Division? Okay, so I'm gonna keep us going. All right, thank you. Oh, well, so then I'll wait because you're the person who presents.
Okay,
I'm gonna skip, I'll
he
skip to
hopped
the,
out.
okay. I'm gonna go to agenda item number 11.
Never mind. I can go now.
Okay, she can go now.
I'll go. Oh, well, we can go.
Okay. Good.
Oh, all right.
Sorry, guys.
No, it happens. I just want to note that Town of Chapel Hill, the Triangle, and Town of Carver reps are here, just for the minutes. Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. We're going to go back a little bit on our agenda and go to our very first agenda item, which is our legislative update, item number 5. Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead and let us know.
Good morning. Yeah, just give us a brief introduction, Andy, and then let us know how things are going on Jones Street.
Yeah, sure. Well, good morning. Thanks everybody for having me. My name is Andy Munn. I'm a co-founder and principal of EQV Strategic. We're a small lobbying firm here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm a North Carolina native from Gastonia, went to Appalachian State, and I've spent my entire career working on state, federal, and local government affairs issues. Primarily, I'm 95% state issues right now, and obviously that impacts local folks. So we've come into an agreement to work with some MPOs and RPOs, providing legislative updates throughout the year. And we agreed to talk this morning, which is like DEFCON 5 around here. I don't know if that's the worst one or the best one, but it is pretty wild here at the General Assembly. I'm actually here now in the legislative building. It's going to be a full day, and I've told my wife I probably won't be home in time for dinner. I'll dive into a quick update on everything that's going on here, and then at the end I can pause and happy to take any questions and try to answer them to the best of my knowledge. So we are in the throes of the budget process right now. It looks like we actually will get a budget this year. The initial stated goal was today to have a budget done. But obviously we're going to blow past that. They do not quite have it ready yet. The big chairs have agreed on just about everything. They've kicked up the controversial items, or the items that remain in controversy, to the corner offices, and that being the Speaker and President Pro Tem Berger. And they're working through those items now. Next step after that is the member projects and getting those funds allocated and settled with different members. And then that will complete the actual budget package. I'm told they're also working on a separate spending bill that will be another round of Helene relief and related disaster funding. So that's in the works as well. I would expect that to be public. No one has a great answer on that, but I think the best guess is the end of June, if not the week after the July 4th holiday. So that is the budget. There are a number of different policy items that are kicking around, from social media issues to data centers. And transportation has popped up recently, and I'm sure that's a big one that y'all are curious about. All of those things are in flux. The House has a position, the Senate has a position. The bills are moving this week and next week. And my long story short, I think Senate bills are going to move to the House, where they will sit. The House bills will move to the Senate, where they will sit until the budget's resolved, and then the hostage negotiations will begin, and some bills will go into conference and be figured out, and some bills will just die on the vine. I think most will die on the vine. That's my prediction, because I think once they get the budget done, people are just going to want to get out of town, because it's been so long since they've gotten a budget. They'll have a lot of policy in there that they can go home and campaign on, and I think that'll be it. And then I do believe, and there's been conversations about them coming back for a November session, which will likely happen, obviously after the elections. I did hear yesterday that there could be an August session. That's the first I've heard of that. I hope there's not one, but that's, nothing's out of the realm of possibilities here on Jones Street. So the transportation issue that I think a lot of people are talking about right now is related to the toll project in Charlotte, where Campo decided against or withdrew their support of the tolls project down there. And so they, there's a reaction from some of the transportation leaders here in Raleigh. And last Thursday, we learned of some legislation that was proposed to be moved, potentially in the agency bill that's moving today, that would require those members of the MPO that voted against the project to give them X amount of time to come up with a new plan, or else have to pay back all expenses incurred to that point for that project. That's a very expensive proposition for many municipalities that that's just really an untenable kind of situation. So that's a major problem. That includes MPOs and RPOs, the latest version that I saw. But latest intel is that they might be backing off of that I mean, and this is information I've received in the last 2 hours, just this morning. So that'll all play out today. You know, in this place in mid-June, the half-life on good information is about an hour. So things are happening pretty quickly, but that is still up in the air at this point. That's a lot I threw at you, so I'm happy to take any questions from the group.
Any questions? And board members, remember your name tags are on back there potentially, so.
I'll go ahead and throw one out. Andy, you mentioned the Hurricane Helene relief bill. I'm under the impression that this is particularly important because without additional funding provided by the legislature, the Department of Transportation will have to use some of its existing maintenance funds for this season as match for federal relief that's already been provided, which would basically, you know, rob Peter to pay Paul, for lack of a better way to explain it, so that we would be deferring maintenance work that's important now to use those funds for the Helene match without another bill.
That is correct. Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you so much for being with us this morning, Andy, and good luck.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good to be with you all and hope to talk to you again soon.
We'll see you after the summer break, Andy.
All right. Thank you very much. Talk to you later.
Thank you. And then moving forward, back under action items, item number 10, update to the federal funding policy.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Calling you planning manager for the TPO. So this item is as a result of some very lengthy discussion at our technical committee meeting. I think we talked about this for over an hour. And it relates to the next two items. So this is kind of a precursor. But essentially, I don't have a full presentation, but in the attachment with your agenda is an updated federal funding policy. And there is only one phrase which has been removed as an underlined strike through for a proposal, and that is to delete, it's on page 3 of the policy, to delete the phrase "and not for roadway projects." The intent is to ensure all the projects from our recently adopted Vision Zero action plan can be funded with our federal funding policy. And this was an inconsistency that was pointed out during the call for projects discussion at the TC. So we're bringing this forward to you for your recommendation. Our public participation plan requires that we release this for a 30-day public comment period before it could be approved by the board. So this is for your consideration to release for public comment today. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I know we'll have some discussion most likely in the next item when we talk about the call for projects. Let me for that.
Does it? Go ahead.
Why did it originally say and not for roadway projects?
It's a great question because we've had a few different versions of this federal funding policy over the last couple of years since I've been here. Our first version, adopted in 2021, did not have that phrase in it, and then it was added back in last year or the year before, can't remember which. But the intent was that we would make sure that our limited MPO dollars could only be spent on projects that are difficult to fund through STI and the spot process. Now that we have an adopted Vision Zero action plan, we know that many of the projects that are going to benefit safety have a roadway component to them. So that is the intent with changing this at this point.
Anyone else? Okay, there was some discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to raise it?
Yeah, so there was some discussion about maybe for on that last bullet point in the project and phase eligibility section, the 4. Right, like adding something to say adding language to include that would say that ensures the project actually addresses a specific safety concern. Because I know the issue is that we have limited funds anyway for things that aren't roads, right? Because of the SDI law. So we wanted to make sure that that it really is a safety concern and not something that just gets thrown in there. That we're spending limited dollars for bike ped and safety stuff on roads, still roads, right?
So an additional change to this bullet point, safety projects are eligible, but only for projects that have a documented safety
That
concern.
actually address a specific safety concern.
Within that project.
Perhaps including that they are on our identified high entry network.
That was something we talked
We
about,
talked to,
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have questions, and they're gonna probably be ignorant questions just because I'm trying to catch up. So right now, you're suggesting the change would allow the money, theoretically, it could use the money to totally fund a roadway project completely. So a lot of that money would go to the roads and maybe some would go to pedestrian aspects of it. Am I understanding that correctly?
Change the eligibility. Essentially, we made a change earlier this year, in this last bullet point to take out not for roadway projects in this bullet point, but we forgot to make it in this place. So there was an inconsistency. All of these types of projects are eligible for federal funding. And this simply says, that these are the funding priority will be given to projects that are in these following categories: public transit, bike ped, et cetera. And then safety projects, that could be a roadway project, but would address a documented safety concern.
So the funds from this would go to they wouldn't go to building a road, they would go to the safety aspects of the project.
Yeah, that's the intent, at least.
But you can't totally separate those out, right?
It's not clear from because when I read this, I was like, oh, now some of these funding can go to just a road project that has a sidewalk, or we're gonna improve the safety aspects of it. It's just not super clear. I don't know if other people read it that way.
Go ahead.
And you guys are suggesting, Carl, that instead of just saying have a documented safety concern, that address a documented safety concern?
You have it tied to something, so that's basically what, Remember Rivers is saying, it isn't perceived as a loophole, essentially, right, to the policy. Because the history of this goes back to the MTP, the 2050 MTP, the original, from several years ago, where some current members made this radical, thank you, I was gonna say aggressive, I was trying to think of the word, thank you, change to because we really wanted the emphasis to be on bike ped and not just, that at that point, it was perceived that was a kind of a compliance exercise that was managed by the federal government, and we wanted it to be an actual useful tool to guide where we wanted transit to go, obviously multimodal. And so this is kind of iterating on that initial idea. And, obviously we didn't have Vision Zero implementer at that point or a plan or anything, so we didn't have anything like the high entry network to refer back to, but now we do.
Can I add something? I think an important part of this is that, it's important that the scope of the design of the project directly addresses that safety concern. Yeah.
And we this was on the call with city staff yesterday in preparation for this meeting. We had a lot of conversation on, proactive, a lot of the safety stuff is we didn't want it to be a documented safety concern necessarily, because then you're reacting to something versus we really want our safety stuff. If it's on the high entry network, there's been documented things, but there's also just design conceptually. We know that the design isn't great. So we wanted it to be as proactive as possible. We don't want the network to be, or the improvements to be, because there's been a documented fatality only. We wanted it to really be around what are we trying to go for safety broadly, so that folks, will choose to walk or will choose to bike because the design of the thing has already been established for them. So that's
embedded.
high risk.
So it's embedded in the.
Correct. So we did, yeah, so, and that, then the project would really have to demonstrate with its design that it is dealing with that safety. And not just this, to your point, a roadway expansion, oh, look, we'll put a sidewalk in and now it meets the criteria.
Yeah.
So.
So perhaps adding at the end of that phrase, documented safety concern on the high injury network.
Is that too prescriptive?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you could say, or the scope of the design directly addresses the safety, documented safety concern, something like that. The design directly addresses the safety concern. That'd be,
Instead of documented safety.
That have a design that addresses, so add
yeah,
after have a design that addresses.
That have a design. Sorry.
And in for the example project that has spurred this discussion, installing a reduced conflict intersection when significantly reduces overall crashes by about 50%. It reduces serious injury crashes at a higher rate and will likely nearly eliminate the potential for fatal crashes at this intersection. And those are documented statistical examples of how the proposed design will improve safety.
Go ahead, yes.
And I imagine we'll get to this with this project, but those will also like make it safer for pedestrians.
Yes.
In this case, yes, we've worked with the department to provide a space for pedestrians and install a multi-use path. It's also navigating and coordinating with the railroad, which runs right through the middle of this intersection. So it is an ambitious project. District 3 at Division 5 has been great. Matt's here to explain any details about the project today. Yeah, I mean, I think the other missing feature is this site and this interchange is very adjacent to where the city of Durham will build its new paratransit bus operations and maintenance facility.
So not to be like too picky, but can that be like pedestrian safety that we're referring to? Because like roads there's all types of unsafe aspects of roads. And like I heard you talk about crashes and vehicles, but that's different than pedestrian safety.
Right, it will be designed to remove pedestrians from conflict points on the roadway.
But in this document, can we make sure that we refer to pedestrian safety? Because like if we just put safety, that can be construed as like car safety. And I'm not advocating for vehicle wrecks, but
right.
I think in the spirit of like the changes made to the document, we want to focus on pedestrian safety.
Yeah, I mean, we could wordsmith something to elevate that.
Bicycle.
And yeah, pedestrian and bicycle, sorry, maybe non-vehicle, non-motorized safety.
Did you have a question, Commissioner?
More so comment.
Okay.
Follow and a question. Yeah, wondering, so I live out by this area of town and this intersection, I've driven over it several times. And if you guys haven't gone by it, it is like you're coming out of the road and if you try to turn left, the railroad is like elevated. So you can't see what cars are coming from the other side of the railroad. So it's a huge safety risk there. And it's gonna be a very heavily trafficked area moving forward because the city has their paratransit facility that's being built there. Durham County is building our new animal shelter out there, as well as Wendy's on the line. I can't remember our
There's an
other.
industrial park that's
Yeah.
going by nearby, a big one.
And then the water park that the city is building is like right on the other side of this. And then there's a bunch of new development. So that's gonna be really big because right now it's like one lane roads on both ways. I had a question for NCDOT and we talked about this with Ellen and Wendy yesterday. What is the possibilities? I know because there is a railroad going right through in the middle, but wondering about like roundabouts in this particular area of, could that be a feature instead of like having it be more so like a opposite intersection, but actually having a roundabout that that has the railroad going through it, like some other places have had.
You have your project manager sitting next to you.
I don't know that I've talked to the rail specifically about putting a roundabout here. I know we've kind of run this alternative through the rail a couple times and gotten various feedback from them. have to talk to them specifically about possibility of a roundabout. Not aware of anywhere that DOT's done that. Becca, maybe if you,
Do you mean like a roundabout on either side of the rail? Is that what you mean when you say roundabout, like a round?
Well, the rail potentially could run through the roundabout.
I think if the roundabout was at the grade crossing, rail would have issue because they don't like to expand the footprint of the road where the road crosses the rail. They're gonna try to minimize that as much as possible. So their preference will always be to minimize the amount of additional pavement and the additional exposure that a train has at that crossing. So I think that would probably not be something that they would be interested in. It's gonna be a hard conversation just to kind of get some of the turn lanes in across the railroad, as well as one of our big focuses is getting the sidewalk across the railroad. And so that's really, I think, where we focus on energy, but they will continue to push back against anything that expands it beyond what's already in some of the adopted plans.
Okay, and then can we also ask like NCDOT for I know Doug talked about like the percentages that, the safety numbers would improve, but the actual like numbers, data of like how many crashes happen at this intersection.
yeah, I have some of that in the presentation, but I can also email that to you specifically.
Okay. I think everyone knows that the intersection itself, if you live in Durham, is highly dangerous. We all like that the project's in here. We just don't want the criteria to make it so that then moving forward, we've set a precedent for not those types of projects. And so how do we tailor the language? Go ahead, and then I'm gonna keep us moving. I know this was gonna be a discussion item, but I do want us to figure out good guidance for the wordsmithing, and then we'll keep going.
Yeah, just going back to the guidance, I just want to make sure we have the non-motorized in there. And like, I'm hearing about this project and it sounds like this will help, but I think in the future, we don't want, making railroads safer, making these crossings safer for vehicles. That's expensive. So I can see it eating up. So like for this project, those improvements that are going to be for like improving the driving experience and safety, that's not going to come from this fund, right? Or how would that work? Because I can see that eating up a lot of money, like in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I can address this in a second when we actually, move to this item on the agenda. But yeah, we're proposing, I think currently the total project budget, right away utilities and construction is around 15 million, when a third of that will be through local match, largely through 2 developments that we have there. I haven't sorted out, specifically the cost of the, what would contribute to pedestrian safety versus what wouldn't contribute to pedestrian safety. The costs of those are hard to separate apart because it's all, it's kind of a system. When you install an RCI and you're installing islands and you're installing an MEP, it's kind of all baked together in there, if you know what I mean.
Goes a slippery slope.
Go ahead, Eric.
I have one clarification. If you change the language to include bike ped safety, would you be like restricting yourself to only locations that have had documented bike ped safety concerns, or?
That's really open to interpretation.
I think we would say something along the lines of prioritizing non-motorized safety.
Non-motorized safety. So safety projects are eligible, but only for projects that have a design that addresses a documented non-motorized safety concern.
That seems good.
Yeah, live with that.
Are folks comfortable with that? Okay, I'm getting thumbs up and head nods. So I think other than that, that was, that's the agenda item. So you just need us to receive the report. I'm sorry.
Release for public comment.
Release for public comment.
With
Thank
those
you.
changes.
Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
I have to talk to Rail.
Any opposed? Okay, no opposed. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Next up, I have someone with calls for projects for funding recommendations. Good morning.
We're doing a quick switcheroo on the tech, so just bear with us. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's cool.
Very meta.
Esther's desktop.
Yeah, so I'm just on the south here, I'm kind of here at Triangle West, and I'm here to talk about our current water projects where we program funds for fiscal years 27 and 28. Good, all right, so here is the schedule for the presentation, so I'm going to go a bit to the background as well as the funding that we had available. I'm going to get into the water comment period that ended and the actual project requests and our recommendations. I'm going to talk briefly about what we discussed at the TC meeting and then discuss the next steps forward. Alright, so for the schedule, we are at the tail end of this. So we started this at the very beginning of the year, where our members submitted projects, and now we are here highlighted where the projects now be approved. We go to the step. From here, the recommendation will go into the state amendment. That is also on this agenda. From there, this is DOT, but it will through that to August. Going to the funding, so here is an overview of the next year's guidance. Just not here, including the fund swap spread and agreement on the last change is a little over 5 million. And on the next slide, we have a quick breakdown just by jurisdiction and just by equipment type for what we saw and our call. Here we go. Okay. So on the left here is just the division of our funds by jurisdiction. We see top two here with Durham and County Hill, and on the right we see the funds divided by improvement type of the project. So in this call, the majority we saw were transit improvements and classification. For the public comment period, we have put out a public input survey just to come share information on projects and our process. And we were also invited to attend a community meeting over with the Great North community. And from the comments we saw there and from the public input survey, we saw there was strong support for both Chief Junction project and just in general for classification and transit infrastructure. Getting into the requests, so here's just a quick summary of also several agencies submitted 19 types of programs, and those submissions total for a little under $100 million. We have a little over $25 million, and so from that we're able to recommend 13 projects for funding. And next is just the funding information for the projects. So these are the already existing projects that are already in the STIP that we're adding more money to. So this first word column is what we'll be adding during this call. And in the next column shows any previous funds that are on the project, including previous federal funds and local funds. And the last column shows the grant will bridge projects after the call. And these are the new projects that will be entering this year for the first time. Now, at the ETC discussion, so one of the things I'll discuss was a one-time exception for the project cap. That was for the available access portal. It was suggested that obviously there should be 14 million to account for the electric vehicle charging stations that were removed from the call as well. Additionally, this, as we heard in the previous presentation, there was some section about conjunction and regarding our federal funding policy, which we have. And so next steps, after this funding recognition is approved, it will be sent to ACDOT, for their review of protecting them and estimate applications. And once those details are entered to the STIP, then municipalities can begin the municipal agreement process.
Phil, before you go back, the funds withdrawn from EV project, what was that EV project? That why the funds withdrawn?
That was fun for the city of Durham, where they built, new charging stations at the PH3 bus station.
They were withdrawn?
Yes, the city decided to pursue their own funds as opposed to our funds.
Okay.
Yes.
Right, just confirming, so, right, so we have other funds, city funds, that they can do the EV charging, essentially, yeah, so it's swap that, so it's beneficial to us.
Good, good.
Anyone else? Any questions? Just need a board action to adopt the call for projects, funding recommendations with the additional 1.2 million to the Fayetteville Transit Emphasis Corridor. Can I get a motion to that?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Does this include the project that we're discussing?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
So it's a package deal?
Yes, that's one of the reasons that the policy came up, was because of this project.
Yeah.
Basically, it fit the criteria because it was a roadway project. And then it kind of triggered the conversation on that policy decision. And so we think that this is a good safety improvement, but we just want to make sure that all projects then can meet that criteria. And I think that that's.
And just a comment going forward, I heard that it's difficult to disentangle the cost that's for pedestrian, that's for roadways, but I would like to see some progress made on that, because I could see roadways, I could see that ecosystem argument being a loophole to eat up a whole bunch of funding for future projects. So like if we could figure out or like give us some estimates of that, I think that'd be important going forward.
Raise one question.
Yeah.
Does the Cheek Junction project fit in more of anything that we just approved?
I think it does, but. I mean, there was a comment on like a commitment to an actual multi-use path, not just sidewalk, to meet the UDO criteria. Like, I guess in Durham now, it's a 7-foot multi-use path is what we require.
I think it's 10 foot.
10 foot, sorry, thank you, 10, is it 12 feet that BPAC asks for? Is that
Right,
what I'm
10 foot
thinking?
is what we're
Okay.
looking for, yeah.
So I guess the ideal would be, it's not just a sidewalk, it's like, because that's what the developers proffered in that area too, if I'm not mistaken. That was a few years ago now, so I think that's the only thing, is that we would want it to match the actual infrastructure that the city's requiring of others. Whether it's NCDOT or a private developer, it doesn't really matter to us. It has to be consistent. Does that make sense?
Yeah, could we go to the previous slide where it has the language, because that is a little bit concerning, because it does say like sidewalk or.
Here's for,
It's the slide that has the, sorry.
We went to the
That one,
key
yeah,
points
yeah,
there.
yeah. It says NCDOT will design for a sidewalk or multi-use path, so that, yeah, that does sort of.
Yeah, so a sidewalk is narrower for us than a multi-use path, and so my request would be that it would be a multi-use path, because that is actually the consistent policy for the city of Durham now.
Sorry,
That seems like a good change.
So, right?
I think my question was more along the lines of, is there a documented non-motorized, safety concern in that location? Or several non-motorized? Because that's the language we just passed, right? That there has to be a documented non-motorized safety concern.
We don't have any kind of in our look back period, we don't have any pedestrian or bicycle crashes there, but I think I think there's several pedestrian drivers in the area. You got a couple restaurants, you got a school not far from there, and as you're building some of these developments, one of them is residential. I think you're gonna kind of build out that pedestrian network, and that pedestrian desire is gonna increase, very shortly here with some of these developments. I think the situation lends itself to being poor for pedestrians, but if the question is, hey, have we had a pedestrian hit at these intersections? We haven't so far. So I'm not sure how y'all want to take that.
And that
as far as
has,
the policy.
that goes back to the whole, we don't want to be reactive. We don't actually want,
We don't want
we don't actually want a pedestrian to be hit. I can say, because I was on council when we approved both the industrial park and several of the residential, the reason that those development proffers were made by those developers was in fact because we were imagining a world where you could live near there. There's a school nearby, there's a shopping center, and now there's going to be jobs. So the vision was getting to our goals as in the city of Durham, well, converged city and county, our comprehensive plan goals of creating, 15-minute cities. And so to not have a documented case does not mean we don't want that infrastructure there.
With the design, the multi-use path, 'cause that's the way we want to design for pedestrian.
And the project, the way that it's currently, set up and designed, I think there's 2 or 3 parcels that increasing from a sidewalk to an MUP could result in pretty significant additional right-of-way takes, but I think that's something we can work through in design. For the vast majority of the project, increasing from a 5-foot sidewalk to a 10-foot MUP is a rather small change. There's 2 or 3 parcels that I think have concerns, and I highlighted them. It's in our presentation, but that's again, something that we would work through in design. And I mean, if y'all fund this project, then that definitely gives you guys that ability to say, hey, we really want this to be done here.
Does anyone else have any questions? Go ahead, Sally.
Javier, I thought your point was a really good one, and I've kind of lost track of the answer here. Why could we not say for a multi-use path and strike out the sidewalk a lot?
That's what I think we should do.
Exactly.
I mean, that's on y'all to decide what you guys want to fund. If that's what you guys want to fund, then.
I mean, that's it's federal funding from this pot, the pot of money that the TPO gets, but it would further the goals of the city of Durham's comprehensive plan in my opinion, a much more better alignment.
Okay, if that takes a motion, I'll move to strike those words.
So we're saying the NCDOT design will design for a multi-use path. Is that right?
Disclaimer, this isn't the exact description, this is a summary of our conversation from the.
Okay. Folks, I'm comfortable with that. Okay, we understand that the easement situation, but at least we'll try. Okay, so then can I get a motion to adopt the calls for project funding recommendations with the addition of 1.2 million to the Fayetteville Transit Emphasis Corridor?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next up, I have item number 12, the TIP accelerated amendment. Looks like you get to stay with us.
So typically this item would be on the consent agenda, but just because the majority of the contents were funding recommendations on our call, we have it right here after this item. And so many changes from when it was just for TC meetings, when projects had their planning models changed. This would be called, for example, the Fayetteville Transit Supporter had worked with Kimberly added, so this year TIP as well. Additionally, there were a couple of additional projects added, TU 2019 for the planning assistance for Road Durham, and additionally a project for mobility hub to correct the description in 20 years of how space was set. Any questions on this amendment? There's also sent your email as well for the updated version.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, so our action today is to adopt the TIP accelerated amendment number 5.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And you're still with us. Item number 13, P9 Express Design Recommendation.
All right, I put it there. So we did talk about our next round of express design submissions. So here's what is this whole process. So the majority of projects that we submit to foundation are in the very early conceptual stage. And the process for these projects are having all over the place. So This process was created just to further refine the process and provide more accurate estimates, so that we can less adjustments on values. And so they opened this into the prioritization process. In the green, those lines are our 3 deadlines for express designs. We have 9 submissions total, and each deadline is submit 3. So here is a overview of the process so far. So as I mentioned, we have 9 submissions, and each of the deadlines we submit 3, and we bring 3 forward to the TPO board, both to approval. Now, with recent amendment to our policy, we've now a current process to select the express design submissions. So we start with our highway project list for P8, just with the candidates from that, and from there we add projects from RTP. Anything that hasn't been submitted for organization, we now add to the list for our companies to consider. And from there, we use our criteria from our local methodology to explore and run those projects, just get everything to those. Here are all of the projects that were considered. I'll read them all out, but the majority of these are past submissions, so we submitted the past prioritizations. And in addition to these, on this list are projects from UTP that have not yet been submitted, but we do want to consider. And so for this round, here are the 3 projects that we are recommending. There is a proposed roundabout at the Garrett and Pickett intersection. Intersection improvements at University Road, County Road, and Cameron Boulevard, and studying Northern Durham Parkway for the modernization. Just we're happy to take any questions on these.
In November, we also approved 3, one of which was Duke University Road, Academy Road, Cameron Boulevard, and I'm wondering how that's different than this one.
At that meeting, it was switched to the Duke Road from I-85 to Carver Road. Although the new materials still are still listed that, but it was really switched to that one. And so it made me do that one, 1898 and also.
I see. Got it.
Anyone else? Okay. Oh, sorry, y'all. Let's go ahead. Can I get a motion to approve the selected express design submissions?
Moved.
Motion. Second. A second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. And then next up, local input for allocation and project rankings for spot 8.
All right, continuing on with organization team. So first, just to do a quick background on the schedule, work process, and our methodology, and then we get into our initial point allocations and discussing the next steps with this. So we just saw this. So we are in the orange rectangle there of the local point assignment, regional. This is a reminder. Decided to assign both regional and division level categories at a time. And a bit of background on the forward process. So initially, after we all submitted projects, they divided into 3 different categories based off of, I guess, their extent and scope. So first off, the large projects, statewide mobility projects. These are common interstate projects, for example. And that score is 100% quantitative scores that were recently. In the next category, this is what we'll be assigning local influence to. First is the regional impact category, and for this one scores, we have about 70% of the scores, and 30% would be our local influence. Speaking from us, the division. Next category is division needs. These are the local neighborhood level projects, and for these, the scores are divided in half. So half being quantitative scores that have been released, and half being local influence. Bit of background on our methodology as far as how we initially assigned local input points. So this table is from the policy. Similar to what we did last cycle, only 2 changes that we made here are highlighted in red. As opposed to just utilizing generic crash data, we specifically use our high engine network from the Bureau's Vision Zero Action Plan. And additionally, just from the past environmental justice approach, we use modified language to with our current environmental justice approach. And so we provide initial ranking using these. And once these scores were released, we were able to refine our rankings as we saw fit. Also define some targets of just what we would like to see our points provided as far as the road. So for vision impact, we see provided the highway, transit, and a graduate of any road. For both dozen points, and then the vision needs highway from transit, vision, and also graduate of any road. And another reminder is that we can flex 500 points going either direction, from division to regional or regional to division, depending on where the components are. So for the initial ranking, deviations can occur from a variety of different reasons, score, whether it aligns with local priorities or with other practices with numbers of other slack growth to slack project. And so from this initial ranking, we spoke with a TC from TPO and came to this current list. I won't go through each line here, but the first are the transit projects for both regional and division categories, so signing points as well. Just a heads up, each project here, you see the full amount of points that they could from us. For the projects that have less than 100, those correspond to the proportion that project is in our area. For example, Orange County or Alms County, 95% of that has been Triangle West, and 5% of that has been in Grand. So they need to provide the remaining points. So this is the point where we coordinate with other agencies just to ensure that our priorities are aligned. Next is our highway category where we saw the most points aligned. So I'll give you 2 minutes to review this. There's all the different intersection improvements and projects in the area. And we have a couple slides just for the highway at the regional level. And one more slide just with the division needs highway projects, and lastly, the rail projects. Now, between the TC meeting and now, the last division scores were released. They're a bit late with that. They have press release in the month. And so with those scores, we were able to use initial ranking or allocation to these projects here. These are just the top 10 scoring projects in the category right now. And so we continue to take the TC and the public as for priorities, and community as TC. So current next steps, as I mentioned, we have the scores and we have our initial ranking. And so now we begin the public interest period to just get the input from the public on what they like to see and not see. And additionally, as I mentioned before, we did coordination efforts with other agencies and divisions just to align priorities. I don't have any questions so far on this one.
Can you go back to the public transit real quick? Does that say only 50% for Central Durham BRT, I think? Shouldn't that be 100?
So for the submission that we put into spot, we had it going to Raleigh. So it is the current extent that this study is in. The student is in commissioning those already downtown or most hills. So
okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah, I was just going to add our initial discussions. We looked through the money that is available at the regional tier for non-highway projects. And interestingly, in this round of spot, there are several very high scoring ferry projects, which are ranking above some of the other public transportation projects. And is it the Asheville to Charlotte rail line?
Yes.
It also ranked very high, and that's a big dollar number. That was close to 9 figures, I think. So adding those projects, when we only have, I think, 130 million statewide, it just doesn't go very far. So it's not that we don't have great projects that aren't scoring well, it's just there's only going to be the potential for a handful of projects to be funded at the regional level. So we'll have to see how that shakes out and what cascades to see if anything is available at the division needs level for us to talk with our division partners about. I just wanted to give that context.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, so our action today is just to release the initial list of projects for local points for a 30-day public review period. Need a motion?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, any opposed? All right, thank you. Next up, we have our Title VI plan.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lynn Moore. I'm a principal planner with Triangle West TPO, and this morning I'm going to be presenting on the 2026 Title VI plan. So with that being said, this is some information that you all have seen before. We brought this to you all previously or earlier in the year. We opened it up for public comments, and so for today, we're going to be doing a review of what's in this Title VI plan, and then we're also going to be asking for your adoption of the plan. So within this plan, it basically is governed by NCDOT. They provide us a template, and it includes our basics, which is assurances and policies. We also have staffing and organization, data collection. We'll go over the related plans that you all have seen previously over the past 2 or so years, and then also over the procedures that are within this plan. So a little bit of background, this plan is guided by the Title VI Act, Title VI, which was adopted as a part of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which basically prohibits our organization from any sort of discrimination for protected classes, which include race, color, national origin, which also extends to language. And again, we just cannot discriminate against any of these protected class under the Civil Rights Act. The previous Title VI plan was adopted in 2019, and then here we are in 2026 bringing forth a newly adopted plan in compliance with NCDOT and our federal regulations. So with that, this includes policy statement and assurances that we have within our plans and our contracts. Again, this is our non-discrimination policy. We have it within the room, and we also have it floating around in a few different places across the building as well. For anyone who visits us, they're clear on what our non-discrimination policy is. Additionally, the plan requires us to outline and detail our staffing and organization. So this is a copy of our organization chart. In addition to that requirement, they have us identify where our Title VI coordinator falls within that organization. And so you'll see an asterisk next to my name that indicates that I am the Title VI coordinator for the organization. Additionally, there are connections to related plans that we have and we have adopted that are also federally required. And so those related plans include the public participation plan that was adopted in 2025. That serves as our guidelines in regards to how we interact with the public, where the public can find information, things of that nature. Additionally, we have our language access plan, which was conducted in a study done under our 4-factor analysis, which identifies the different languages we have within the region and which meet those like safety harbor thresholds. And then the third thing that you see here is the environmental justice report that we recently adopted this year in 2026. And it allowed us to identify our most transportation disadvantaged populations here within the region and really make sure that when we are doing our planning efforts that we're considering the impacts on those communities. Lastly, our plan includes procedures. Most importantly, our external complaint procedures. So if there are any acts of discrimination that take place, whether it be with our staff or our planning processes, people have 180 days of that instance or issue in order to make a complaint to us, the Federal Highway Administration, NCDOT, and then we'll start off in regards to what our process is for being able to handle those complaints that come in. And then additionally, we outline compliance and enforcement. This is a plan that should be updated ideally about every 4 years. NCDOT does a check typically about every 3, but this is what our compliance looks like in regards to Title VI training, any issues that we have that can be addressed at staff meetings, participating in any sort of compliance reviews conducted by NCDOT, And then additionally, we talk about outreach and engagement a little bit more. Again, making sure that we are adapting our outreach and engagement efforts to the needs of the community as outlined. And so today's action is to adopt this plan as a part of the rest of the plans that we've adopted relating to our public participation, our environmental justice report, and then our language access plan. And so if you have any questions, I'd be open to taking them.
Anyone have any questions? No? I just wanted to say this is really great work and I'm glad to see it, especially on the language access part. Our action today is to adopt the Title VI plan.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jess. So it's a Triangle Bikeway East Design Project.
Good morning, everyone. I'm David Miller with Triangle West. We are joined by Kara Russell from Capital Area MPO, and this next item pertains to Campo's Triangle Bikeway East Design Project. So a little background before I turn it over to Kara. We last presented an update on the Regional Triangle Bikeway project to this board in April. During that presentation, Campo shared details about their design project and that they were developing preliminary designs for the section in their area, as well as 4 miles of the bikeway in our area. And those 4 miles entail the section from the Wake County border through the edge of our TP. And it was shared that Campo would be coming back in June to share these designs and also to seek an endorsement that they can use to move forward in the next phases of their design. And so I'll turn it over to Kara to share her presentation with us.
Thanks, David, and thank you again for having me back here today. I'm really excited to show you some of the progress since we last spoke. I'll move on ahead. I'm going to cover a little bit of a reminder of the project status, a little bit of the progress and next steps, where we're headed, and then I will jump into the alternatives analysis and the alignment recommendation proposed. So just as a reminder, this design phase is a follow-up from the 2022 implementation and feasibility study, which anticipated a whole corridor of 23 miles. And so in 2024, Wake County and the District Tribal Foundation partnered together to fund the design up to 90% where the project extends going from OTP all the way to Raleigh. So this is about 14 miles. Campo was asked to manage as the project manager for this section of bikeway, but we also have great cooperation with NCDOT with the review and oversight agreement, as well as interjurisdictional coordination along this corridor. So we're very thankful to be working in this area. We've worked with the city and county staff as well, just to make sure that we're looking at the area, all eyes and all players at the table. So a little bit on the surveying. At the end of this month, we should wrap up all of those activities, aerial surveying, and then that will complete all that activity there on the corridor. We are moving to complete the alternatives analysis and the conclusion this week of bringing the alignment over to both boards. We started this process back in 2024. I spoke a little bit about that last time. With site visits, did a little bit of traffic analysis, feasibility validation in 2025, and then kicked off our stakeholder feedback groups in December and January, as well as did our public engagement in January and February as well. We've also started the drafting of some of the nuclear-related environmental documentation on the project, and then also continuing to do that project coordination for other projects that are progressing along in their design throughout the corridor. So our next steps to complete after today here in June, going forward, so as for alignment recommendation from both boards, we're going to take that back and complete that 30% design. So when we have that confidence of the routing of the alignment of the project, we can go ahead and make sure we're looking at the treatment, some of the more specific details of design that still need to be worked out, but at least you have that confidence of the routing through the region. And we anticipate from there, after design review in the fall, that we would have the 30% design complete in early 2027. So this is when we have the sharp and pencils cost estimates of the construction of the project at that time, and it will complete that preliminary design phase. All right. So as I mentioned before with the alternatives analysis, in fall of 2025, concept plans were developed for each of these four highlighted areas up on the map on the screen. And then we held stakeholder input meetings, which included all of our regional partners, such as transit, state parks, RDU, all of the folks along the corridor that would want to see what's going on with the project and to receive their input on these different alternatives. These were not only areas that the feasibility and implementation study left open to further investigation in 2022, but when you think about where this project touches down and connects to our regional system, these areas hit some of the highlights. We also did public engagement throughout January and February. So asked folks where they would go using this corridor, where they want to go using this corridor using the bike. And so got some good feedback there. That information is published on the website as well. We've got that report in appendices. If you're interested to see all that was done there. And then we pulled all this together to develop a methodology tool to be able to evaluate between the different alternatives, which I'm going to go over in a bit. And then we brought this forward to our technical and leadership committee, which comprises of staff from all jurisdictions, to make sure that we were weighting some of the methodology right, making sure we wanted to use this as a tool. And then on April 9th, later on, we pulled everybody together again to be able to come to consensus on the recommendation to bring forward today. So I'm trying to go through this pretty quickly. In terms of the methodology that was developed, you'll start to see this on the other slides, but at a high level overview, there were 8 key factors that were picked apart for each of the different alignment areas. They were given a discrete scoring from 1 to 5. Some of them were qualitative, some of them were quantitative, and then the grades were then given a component weight as well. So again, this will start to make sense as we go through each of the areas. I'll try to highlight that as we go. But I'm going to start on the westernmost side and move east for you today. So we'll start here in our TP. In C54, 2 alternatives were developed in this area. One looking at north of 54, and then one looking to cross and then continue on south of 54. You'll notice that this is where the dark blue line is the rest of the alignment. That is pretty secured of where that is going. So how it makes those connections, where it crosses the roadway, and things of that nature. So after looking at the different factors, giving them a score and then having them weight against each other, alternative 2 was recommended to be selected as the alternative for the 54 corridor, in that it provides a more convenient typical section for the widening on the bridge. But it crosses, it also upgrades the existing route that's out there today and provides that crossing at a signalized intersection, and then continues along the riding on the south side of the back. This green line continues to make that easy connection there to the rest of the alignment on that side. All right. Now moving a little bit further along on 54.
Actually, just a question on that. So essentially, you're recommending like the south side of 54.
Correct.
Would be the alignment, preferred alignment.
Correct. And then actually, so this is just a little bit further on, continuing on the south end of 54, where it picks up. This next section is the most complicated, so please feel free to ask your questions on this. These were the different routing segments that are looked at through the RTP area. We were able to come up with 3 different discrete lines for the purposes of evaluation. But in terms of trying to make sure, you heard from the public maximize connections, destinations, but also trying to look at the constructability as well as maximizing a lot of the existing infrastructure that's out here today. We heard some concerns from stakeholders on some of the sections, so this is a success story in that we were able to then come together to identify how to best route using the lines that were developed for the routing and get the best of both worlds. So this red line here, for all purposes of being clear, is alternative 4 that was then taken and put together. It looks at staying on the south side of 54, making that connection through the Triangle Mobility Hub, which you'll hear a little bit more about today, and then going under the existing crossing of the railroad near Hobson and kind of making that connection back over to Slinger that way. So because there were some concerns on alternative 3 that was dropped from the scoring, but we were instead able to score alternative 4 for that comparison. And it may not surprise you that that did become the recommendation moving forward. It did utilize the existing multi-use path beneath the railroad, which is a big plus. It provided the most connectivity on both sides of the area that we're looking at. In comparison to the other 2 that it was scored against, or compared with, as well as did a really good connection point there with the Triangle Mobility Hub. So that would be the technical recommendation for that RTP area. So I'm going to move on to the other 2 sections, but I know for TW2, this is probably the most interested section of the questions where I keep moving on. Right. I'm going to give you a quick view. So now here we go further east, where we're making the connection near Lake Crabtree. So RDU is up to the north, Lake Crabtree is down to the south. That's where a lot of the connection into the Town Cary and Morrisville Greenway connection, so that you can get to downtown Cary, downtown Morrisville, hop on a bus in this area, as well as make that connection hopefully one way to RDU as well, a little bit further north. So 2 alternatives were contemplated, one looking on the south end of 40, one looking on the north end. The one on the north end in purple contemplated a new construction of bridge over 40 and made that connection of Old Reedy Street to the east. The other, the yellow one, looked at staying more at grade to where the existing trail network is and connecting on Ruby Creek there on the south side of the bridge. All right, in this area, alternative 2, that yellow line to the south, ultimately ended up being the technical recommendation there. It was significantly less cost to build the new bridge on the purple side, as well as it provided a more favorable connection to some of the destinations that are coming online in that area, as well as a more direct connection to that greenway system going into Cary and Morrisville, as well as it would be less costly for the city blocks. There's some pretty steep topography on the north side there. So that is the technical recommendation there. And then our last alternative area that was looked at, this is near Edwardsville and Wade Avenue, Blue Ridge area of Raleigh. So The first recommendation was looking to go up Edwards Mill, go under the tunnel of Edwards Mill, and then move our way on the north side to make that connection there to the Art Museum. The other alternative looked to go south, make that connection under Edwards Mill and the tunnel. That's why these areas kind of go out and out from the 40 corridor. And then hub the right of way there along the neighborhood center and up through Blue. The scoring of this as well looked to be that the technical recommendation of the alternative 2. Again, it would make a more direct connection to the Raleigh Sports and Entertainment District that's in development. It also would offer a better user experience when you think about the shade and the grade on the south end, and then offer connection to some of those improvements that are happening. Right now, there's a lot of construction on Blue Ridge Road area for bike and pedestrian improvements. We might see a big red bridge over 40. So we're thinking about how that ties into that existing work that's being done. Also considered more favorable alternative to recommend. So with all that to say, put forward today is asking for the endorsements of the alignments in these different areas. So that way we have one final routing to go ahead and continue to pull forward to 30%. So I think that is all that I have for you today. Back to this slide. Are there any questions for me?
Any questions?
For Doug or for the chair, remind me, so I'm so glad you're going ahead with the Triangle Bikeway on the eastern side. And you're working with the Triangle RTP Foundation on that. I'm just curious, like, so we're not moving along as fast here on the west. So when do we see when are we gonna sort of move ahead with that? And what's taking us longer than?
Yeah, Wade County appropriated about $5 million to do this design work.
From their transit.
Yeah.
No, it was a direct county appropriation.
Oh, direct county. Okay, so Wake County.
Yeah.
5 million? Okay.
And with RTP.
And the contribution with the match. Okay, that's useful.
But I will say that while we are focusing on some more incremental approaches, several of the projects we've talked about and seen today would touch the Triangle Bikeway and extending it through Durham County into. So there's some pieces moving forward as part of current NCDOT proposals. And we're going to go back and take a look at the final preferred designs in Durham County, just to verify that they're constructible before we figure out next steps on that.
Can someone remind me, where's the end point?
The western end?
Yeah, the western end.
Raleigh Road.
I think it's just outside of Frame.
Well, for this initiative, it ends.
Yeah, like the whole
You mean
thing.
the
Yeah,
whole bike?
the whole thing.
But
No.
The full project.
Yeah.
We connect like Middlemont.
Okay, so that's what I was trying to remember, is where does it connect in Orange County? And I think that, I mean, I'm just gonna say this is incredible and I'm glad Wake is doing it. It is incumbent on Orange and Durham, in my opinion, to figure it out, because all we're doing is setting up, I mean, you want the tax base. So all we're doing is setting it up for Wake County folks to get really good jobs, high paying jobs, and then go back to their community and not capturing those residents. And so I think there has to be some, yeah, I mean, we've seen the data, a huge percentage of future jobs are actually in Durham County. The population growth isn't going to, I mean, if we want those people, and same with Orange County, we have to incentivize the development to make that a reality, or we are literally we're losing residents. And that's money, like we have to figure that out. It's great for Wake and Johnston, because that's where a lot of the population is showing. But for the folks in this room, we need some of those residents to move into our counties, because it is our tax base. And so what are we doing on our land use and incentivizing so that when people move to the area, you're in competition. We're in collaboration, but we're also in competition. And that's a real reality. You have a lot of choices when you move into this area of where you're going to be. And that's also for our workforce. There's a lot of places people can choose to work. And so I always keep that top of mind because it's hard to have those conversations when you're doing rezonings. If you're one of the board members in this room who has to do that or make those tough calls. But whenever we see these kinds of things and we're seeing what Wake County is, and obviously their pool of money is quite different than ours, but that's going to continue to be the case based on what we're seeing with population growth if we don't make some different decisions. So.
You're saying the amenities are sort of like attracting residents, right?
Yeah.
This is a great amenity.
Yeah. So thank you so much for the presentation. Does anyone else have any questions, comments? Okay. Our action today is to endorse the technical recommendation alignment of the Triangle Bikeway East Design Project to carry forward to 30% design completion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you so much for being with us today. And then last action item this morning is our Triangle Mobility Hub locally preferred alternative.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. For those I haven't met, my name is Catherine Miller. I'm the Director of Real Estate and Transcommunity Development with Go Triangle. And I am also the project manager for our Triangle Mobility Hub project as well. So today I'm here to present the locally preferred alternative, or LPA as I'll refer to it, for the Mobility Hub. The TC heard this presentation and recommended approval of an LPA earlier this month, and I'm excited today to share this information with the board. Great. So I'll provide a really quick project overview, a summary of some of our recent public engagement activities, followed by kind of grounding us in the purpose and need and alternatives analysis that informed our LPA. We provided a lot of information in your agenda packet as we made a lot of progress on this project in the past couple of years since you probably last heard from us formally. So I'll try to keep my comments brief. All right, so the Triangle Mobility Hub, as hopefully you all know, will be a new multimodal transportation hub in RTP, replacing our current regional transit center over here on Slater Road as the primary hub for regional bus services connecting Wake, Durham, and Orange counties. This project is really critical for doing a few things: improving transit speed and reliability, supporting multimodal connections in the region, and providing new rider amenities as well. Go Triangle is working with the developer team to design and deliver this mobility hub, with also a future phase of privately funded transit-oriented development also being planned for this site by the Research Triangle Foundation. The timeline and program for that TOD development, I can tell you now, is unknown and dependent on market conditions over the next few years. But we're really excited for the potential to have a TOD development at this site, to add new riders to the transit system, as well as provide amenities for those riders. Right, so in addition to relocating and expanding the capacity of the current RTC here at this new site, we'll be creating new amenities we're excited about, including a larger condition waiting area and restroom facilities for riders, as well as more comfortable facilities for our operators and customer service staff as well. This facility will support current and future service expansion, including the routes you see here on my slide, and we also expect to grow service out of this facility consistent with the adopted county transit plans. We're currently wrapping up preliminary design and engineering kind of through 30% design later this summer. As part of that process, we're also evaluating environmental impacts through the federal NEPA environmental review process. We expect to break ground in 2027 and to complete the project and open for revenue service in early 2030. Right. As far as funding, committed funding sources for this project are here on the slide. I'll just point out a few. We have a $25 million federal raise grant, $2 million additional federal money that was recently appropriated to the project through the federal budget process, as well as $5.5 million of RFF awards or funding that was awarded by Triangle West in 2024. The remaining $27.7 million of funding comes from the Durham, Orange, and Wake County transit plans. All right, so now I'll share a recap of our public engagement efforts on this project, the kind of lead us and get us to this LPA selection, including some recent activities that we just concluded. All right, so this is a lot of text on this slide, but I'll just note, our initial outreach on this project dates back to a needs assessment that we conducted back in 2020 as part of Go Triangle's RTC relocation study. We've since had several touch points with the general public, with other stakeholders throughout project planning and early design work, including soliciting feedback on our proposed site this spring and summer. So all these engagement activities essentially result in this LPA recommendation, this site selection, that we share with regional decision makers, such as yourselves, for approval before submitting it to FTA as part of our environmental review. So as far as results, I mentioned this spring we conducted both in-person and digital engagement to share information and updates about the project first and foremost, as well as to solicit feedback on our proposed location for the project. A full report of these activities is included in your board packet, but just to highlight a few of the key results. The top priorities for riders and potential riders that we heard were really in line with what we heard back in 2020 in that needs assessment. And those were covered boarding, restrooms, real-time arrival information, and additional seating. Overall, we heard really strong support for the project and for ensuring that it's really accessible to everyday destinations that riders are looking for. All right, so to set the stage for the LPA recommendation, I'll walk through our purpose and need and analysis of all our alternatives. The purpose and need for us is really our North Star in the project planning and development process. So site selection, facility design, everything needs to come back and support this purpose and need. The purpose for this project is enhancing regional connectivity and mobility, while the need we see is twofold. One, to support that transit plan funded expansion of service into the future, as well as addressing some of the operational constraints that are just inherent to the site. If any of you have taken the bus to and through our RTC, you might have noticed some of them, its location and kind of distance from major highways, access being unsignalized, layout, some safety concerns with mixed traffic. There's a few different things that just our site is not able to accommodate. All right, so with that purpose and need in mind, I'll recap just how we identified and evaluated alternatives or potential sites for the mobility hub. So through that RTC relocation study that I mentioned, Go Triangle, assessed the existing conditions of the RTC. We established those criteria we were looking for in a new site, and we engaged stakeholders and the public to inform our search. That initial parcel search, with all those criteria in mind, yielded 113 sites for potential consideration. We whittled those down over multiple rounds of evaluation and landed on these three sort of what we call opportunity sites. They're all along the NC54 corridor. They are Hub RTP, a site called Park Point, and a site called TMC, or the Triangle Metro Center. That was a planned station location for the Legacy Regional Rail Project in the early 2000s. All right, so we scored these final three opportunity sites, plus we scored the existing RTC as kind of the no-build alternative against a variety of weighted metrics that you see here. The site that scored the highest in our evaluation was the Triangle Metro Center site, the TMC, lots of related acronyms. And this site is currently owned by the Research Triangle Foundation. All right. So that brings us to the focus of today's presentation and our request today, which is the LPA. All right, so just to zoom in a bit on that site, like I said, formerly called the Triangle Metro Center. It's located on NC Highway 54 between Davis Drive and South Miami in RTP. It's at the intersection specifically of 54 and the railroad corridor. All right, a lot of information I've included just here for reference on the site itself, but I'll just point out importantly, the site is undeveloped right now, and the current zoning allows for the Triangle Mobility Hub to be built, as well as future transit-oriented development as well. All right, so this site also satisfies kind of the three major criteria we think about when evaluating an LPA for a regionally significant multimodal hub like this project. So number one, in terms of location and site, it's proximate to I-40 and proximate to planned investments in other modes of travel, such as you heard one of them, Triangle Bikeway, bus rapid transit, future passenger rail as well. All of those investments being sort of called out and emphasized, consistent with the 2055 NTP. Number two, in terms of the modes we can accommodate, it was important that this site can not only support kind of the current functionality and expanded of the RTC, so that includes bus and on-demand transit, park and ride, first and last mile connectivity. through those kind of multi-use paths. And also it was really important that, while we are not building connections to BRT, bikeway, passenger rail as part of our project scope, we really wanted to make sure that we support those connections and that there's kind of a logical connectivity between all of those being located here at this site. And finally, the LPA really needs to be large enough to support, not only the conceptual program for the mobility hub project itself, but also large enough again to support that future safety. So last year, in terms of kind of where we are with this site, last year Go Triangle executed a partnership agreement with the current landowner, as I mentioned, the Research Triangle Foundation, really committing this site to the Triangle Mobility Hub until we can get through the NEPA process and actually pursue right-of-way acquisition. And then we also procured and brought on that developer team so that they could conduct on-site due diligence, evaluate conceptual layouts, and really verify that this project scope can be accommodated at this site. So in terms of where we are in the process, here's kind of a summary of the steps we go through to get this LPA approved. Both MPO boards are considering this LPA this week, in fact. The CAMPO process also includes a 30-day kind of formal public comment period on the LPA itself, and a formal public hearing that will take place tomorrow at the board meeting. All right, and so that public comment period for the LPA, again, being kind of facilitated by CAMPO, that closes today. Wanted to give you all some stats and a sense for the feedback we're hearing. As of yesterday, there have been 335 page views and 9 comments received. And all those comments really indicated support for the project, support for the proposed site, as well as noting, just re-emphasizing interest in amenities like bike storage, retail options, attractive landscaping, all the things that the public wants to see and that we're incorporating into our design process. Just one representative comment here. The site looks like a great pick. Looking forward to more transit and retail options in that area, as are we. All right, so in terms of next steps, just generally on the project. So following the LPA consideration and approval this month, we'll be continuing to refine our site layout and our cost estimate through 30% design this summer. We'll also then submit our documentation for environmental clearance to FTA, after which we can pursue that right-of-way acquisition, as I mentioned. All along, we're working on developing our grant agreement with FTA to obligate that raised grant. And as part of that process with FTA, that's where we finalize all the details of the project scope, the project budget, and project schedule with FTA. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that folks may have.
Did we have this presentation in our packet? Because I got 4 different things and this wasn't one of them. And could we get a copy of this?
Yeah.
That would be helpful, because I couldn't see anywhere in what we got about what the total budget was and the breakdown, so that would be helpful. And someone had mentioned that might be over budget, and how does that factor into the numbers that you showed us?
Yeah, I'll go back to the committed funding that we do have.
Yeah, that's not the budget, that's just the money they have.
Oh, money that's been
allocated.
Well, I gotta say, everyone here does a nice slow job, and you went really quickly for my southern ears, but.
Yeah, so here's our committed funding. And so yes, I mean, as mentioned, that's not the project budget. This is just committed funding that we have. So our budget will be finalized, again, kind of in partnership with FTA as we work through the grant agreement process.
Do you have an estimate of what that budget is?
Yeah, so our budget that we submitted as part of our raise grant application, this was in 2024, was $58.2 million. Granted, there's been a couple of years since then. We have, been applying for other funding sources, anticipating any potential cost increases. So, securing that $2 million earmark was really important for us. Just to augment our sources that we have, but we're working through the cost estimating process this summer now that we have the design team on board and evaluating those conceptual designs.
And if there's a gap, where are you going to look for that?
Yeah, we'll be looking to any and all eligible funding sources. We applied last summer for the 5339 program. I anticipate we'll apply again for that program. We'll continue to pursue any funding sources we can.
And then a couple more questions, like where we currently are located, how did we choose that? And I guess we weren't looking ahead to these particular needs then, or how do we, and then the second question is, once this gets built, I presume we won't need that, and will that money go in to help offset costs of this, or we'll try and go put that elsewhere?
Yeah, it is correct that once we build the Triangle Mobility Hub, the RTC location, which that land, actually where the RTC, the bus route sits, is we lease that land from another property owner. So then you'd be able to terminate that lease and no longer,
So we don't,
have costs.
y'all don't own it, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then as far as the background on the RTC itself and the location there, I don't know, Catherine, if you've got any additional. Definitely predates my time.
Yeah, hi, Catherine Eggleston, Deputy TPO with the Triangle. Predates my time as well when that site was selected, but what I've been told is that the current site that the regional transit center is located was intended to be a temporary site until more information was known about what the longer term plans for regional transit looked like, and a site could be identified that would serve as the more permanent home of the regional transit center.
Go ahead.
So I appreciate the presentation about the preferred alternative there, and it sounds exciting. I guess I'm just curious about, and I saw the scoring there, and I know the hub site also was close in scoring in terms of average scores. So I'd love a little, just sort of for you to share with us, like what are the trade-offs here between the TMC side and the others? What are we gaining? What are we losing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me pull up this map here. I mean, one of them, as far as the hub site itself, is its distance from the rail corridor and any kind of potential like passenger rail. I think maybe at the time we were thinking it was still going to be potentially commuter rail, but for passenger rail.
That's the hub site is further away from.
It's further away, yeah. So the rail line is here in yellow, and the hub site is the furthest from the rail. So there would have to be sort of, you would then, if there was a stop there, folks would then have to connect, through some other means to get to our hub. So the idea was thinking about the kind of co-location here at this site with all of these transit investments sort of coming together.
But the hub site is kind of closer to where we see sort of like a kind of population center kind of growing, right? So so it does have that advantage.
Sure. And we will continue to operate the RTP Connect program, which currently folks can use to access like Lyft rides from the RTC to points within RTP, including hub. And so the thinking is, we continue to operate that program in partnership with.
It's like a micro-mobility kind of.
Yeah, that kind of micro-mobility. And again, in the future when the bikeway is potentially constructed, when BRT is potentially constructed, you have all of those connections that take you right from our mobility hub to some of those destinations within RTP.
So the bikeway would go, that's right, it's along 54.
Right. It's going along 54. I think here, this was maybe an old version of the alignment. I think it would probably, right now they're calling for it turning down within the Duke Energy easement right here, in between kind of the site and the rail line is where that would be.
Go ahead. And are there any environmental concerns?
So we're still evaluating environmental impacts. Nothing so far has emerged as like big red flag. I will say in terms of some existing conditions on the site, we do have a jurisdictional stream running along the north side of the site that's complicating some of our access considerations. So we'll just need to be mindful there. But the site is undeveloped. There's no kind of environmental contaminants that we're aware of or anticipating on the site.
And it looked like you're only taking like 2/3 of that green area instead of is there a reason for that? You don't think you need to have that in case for park and rider expansion or?
Meaning?
You see the white line at it looks like you're leaving out a lot of.
Yeah, so this here is kind of the focused site that we are looking at and siting the mobility hub. This actually is a neighboring parcel.
What does NEPA study area mean?
Yeah, the NEPA study area is basically the area where we're capturing any potential environmental impacts. And so we wanted to draw the box a little bit more generously to account for any kind of roadway improvements we may need to make to 54 to support this project, any kind of roadway connectivity or improvements we need to make to the neighboring parcel to support this project. So the NEPA study area, that's the area where we calculate impacts to really see what the impact of this project is going to be. But save for those roadway improvements, the project scope will be situated here within the LPA site that's owned by RTF. Yeah, good question.
Also, back to my previous question, so on the mobility, it's sort of like
Yes.
metric, so it shows the hub is a little bit better in terms of like increased bus speed and reliability, like what's the difference between the hub and TMC on that? What causes that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I probably have to look back at all those scoring criteria and follow up with you to sort of tease out exactly how those scores ended up being a little bit different. I think those two sites certainly scored pretty similarly. I think one difference maker for us too was thinking about RTF's interest and their kind of wanting to partner with us to make this project happen. And this was a site that we determined, had kind of the best, what's the word, kind of potential to make that partnership successful. They also, want to create that TOD here. It's kind of like an entryway into RTP. So for them, this was also kind of their preferred site.
For the Research Triangle Foundation?
Yes.
Compared to Hub?
I believe so. Again, I could go back and provide some additional detail on that if it would be helpful.
You can see that,
yeah.
Sure. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
I have a few questions to follow up on an email I sent in March. When you presented this most recently to your board, you suggested that with the project budget, you may eliminate the vehicle purchases that were included in your application for our funding and for the RAISE grant. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is a really good question. So we still plan to purchase buses that will support the kind of service expansion that's being programmed out of this facility. In the last couple of months, we have been discussing it with FTA. They have told us that battery electric buses are not something that the current administration is interested in funding. So we're evaluating right now kind of what emission type options we have as far as that bus purchase is concerned. They offered we could do hybrid and battery electric buses or CNG. We're trying to evaluate, within our fleet, what makes the most sense for our operations. But yes, we do still intend to purchase buses. Now, whether that, if BEVs, if we determine that that's still the fuel type we want to pursue, that would need to be funded outside of the RAISE grant scope. They've already indicated that their funding cannot be used to purchase BEVs.
But that would also change the scope of the award potentially for Triangle West. So I just want to flag that.
Okay.
Can you go back to the rendering? That looks pretty exciting. The building that's in the rendering, what's that going to be?
Yeah, so with the caveat that all of this is very conceptual, so our thinking right now is basically the publicly funded component of the Triangle Mobility Hub, which calls for indoor passenger waiting area, restrooms, space for operators and customer service staff and ticketing, those sorts of functionalities. Those will live on the ground floor of this building here. Now, Go Triangle is also assessing the potential to relocate our administrative offices, to be co-located here with the Triangle Mobility Hub. That scope of the project, the Go Triangle admin office, is being funded fully separately from the publicly funded Triangle Mobility Hub project scope. So that's our Go Triangle budget is funding ongoing design. If we choose to build our office here, the construction of that would also be funded by Go Triangle budget sources, including disposition of real estate assets and things like that. Yeah. So all conceptual, and again, this is sort of an early thinking about at full build out once also the TOD phase is complete, where there could be potentially some multifamily housing, some retail amenities. The sort of exact location and layout and program of all those components are still being determined.
Good. And the size, it looks a lot smaller than Hub and Park Point. And as we looked at that other picture, it's really only about 2/3 of the size of the part you have circled in the legend that has all the 4 spots on it. So in terms of, you also mentioned park and ride, are you sure that this is going to be sufficient size to accommodate that?
Yes, we are sure that it will be sufficient size. We've had our developer and design team evaluating various conceptual layouts, but it will include that park and ride space. It will include the kind of indoor, Triangle Mobility Hub kind of indoor transit center components and a bus loop that is bigger than what we have here at the RTC. Yes.
As we go Triangle rep, I just want to add another layer to the idea of putting the whole administrative offices on the second and third floors there. The current office, you all drive by it if you come down Denver Highway, is larger than is needed. There's been discussion over the years of renting out part of it, and that would involve a lot of upfitting, which would be expensive. And so the decision has been, and I think it's the right one, to aim to locate the headquarters here. So I just wanted to say it's not just a matter of convenience of creating some density here. There's a real need to rethink the scale and design of the Go Triangle headquarters, and this is a great opportunity to do that. And it is a valuable piece of real estate that can be sold and the profits funneled into this.
So you're going to purchase the land that the new place is on versus leasing it?
So the kind of mechanism for that, we still haven't determined with RTF, whether it will be kind of a long-term lease or kind of an outright purchase. Importantly, we cannot negotiate those details until we get through NEPA. We have to follow like federal requirements about procurement of real estate, and that includes getting through our NEPA clearance before we can determine that. But we do have a partnership agreement with RTF that, as I mentioned, does state, we sort of have right now kind of an exclusive right to negotiate for that property for the mobility hub, and it commits that that Go Triangle will establish what we call satisfactory continuing control of the real estate, which is kind of the threshold that we need for FTA.
And I didn't know, because you had said the current site is leased, and I didn't understand what Sally just said about
our admin office building. We own that building as a parking lot, but the actual bus loop and kind of what we refer to as the regional transit center, that's leased.
Which is adjacent, so it's confusing, but we own.
I got it, and now I understand, yeah.
Go ahead.
One last thing, the partner developer is related to the group that's also partnered at RusBus, correct?
That's correct.
What
Yes,
is there any, and if I recall, they had not moved forward with anything vertical there because of changing market conditions.
that's correct.
What'll be the difference here?
Yeah, so, I mean, as you mentioned, the kind of capital markets and construction costs right now have precluded them from being able to move forward on the overbuild on RusBus. What will be different here is hopefully by the time they're building, again, the kind of TOD future phase, that market will have changed. They're certainly doing a simpler product type here. They're not thinking, 20-story high rise. They're thinking about, stick-built, multifamily housing, like certain product types that are just easier to finance and cheaper to build. As far as delivering our transit facility though, I mean, they delivered the RusBus facility, on time and within budget, which we were really excited about, and we're really confident they're going to do the same for the mobility hub kind of phase of this project. Yeah.
I mean, the final cost for RusBus was in the neighborhood of $50 million. Is that roughly accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah, the public component for RusBus was about $40 million. The build grant funded component, or the federally funded component, was within the 37 point whatever $1 million that was. For that, and we had some additional design by the transit center. The $50 million you're referring to maybe is there was some additional funding, $8 million funding for some early private components that needed to be built at the same time as the public components. So things that were structurally integrated, like the ramp to get up to the parking deck that will be above the transit facility, that had to be constructed concurrently with the public facility. But that it was tracked and is really a separate project from the publicly funded component, and will be refunded to the transit plan when the private development is constructed.
We don't anticipate that under this proposal.
No, there's going to be no kind of vertical integration of kind of private TOD with, the public component, save for, again, like the Go Triangle office space, which is being kind of tracked as its own project. So hopefully that complication is a little easier to navigate this go around.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
I know when we were talking about the rail and sort of this and the Triangle Mobility Hub, I seem to recall this site was like the closest to rail, but it's still not like, I mean, so in this description, I see the buses there. So like where exactly is the rail?
Yeah, let's zoom back to the view of the property and you can see the adjacency here.
We are working with Rail Division on a concept to show a platform here at the site.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the rail corridor right here. And then this is our site right here. In between is a Duke Energy easement.
So how do you get from the hub to the?
Yeah, so we're still trying to figure out what that would look like. I mean, I think that there's potential to do like a perpendicular crossing, through the rail corridor and through the Duke Energy easement to get to our site. It's possible that there would have to be connections elsewhere. We're not quite sure where the platform is going to be located. But again, in terms of, if there is to be a rail station, it is likely going to be in this kind of vicinity. And so being as close as we possibly can is the best chance we have at making that connection.
So that image you showed, so where exactly on the site, where is what you just showed me, where exactly, does that sort of front on 54 or where is that?
So the TNH.
The image you just.
So right now, we're anticipating, that was an older conceptual rendering, I will say, as far as how things are related to each other, but we're anticipating that the bus loop would kind of be here, it would be sort of perpendicular to the rail as far east as we possibly can without getting into that Duke Energy easement. So that's where the bus loop is going to be, with kind of the indoor transit center component likely here. Again, we're sort of finalizing the details exactly of the layout through 30% design this summer.
And so to get from that center to the rail, it's like it's a 5-minute walk, how far, like 1 minute walk, like what are we talking?
Yeah, again, we don't know exactly where that rail station is going to be located, so it's hard to say in minutes what that connectivity will be. The best we can do right now, until we get more information from that rail study, is to situate our facilities as close as possible to that rail line.
But give me it's not a 15-minute walk, right?
No, ideally no.
So
they don't have the information.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, just give me a sense of what's it's not a 20-minute walk, it's maybe a 5-minute walk, or it's less than something, just kind of, there's gotta be some.
I think part of the issue is we're butting up against the federal process here.
Yeah.
So which is an issue, because this is what keeps happening. This has happened with other big transit projects, is that you only can get so far.
Right. But we know it's not a 20-minute walk. So
we don't really know, because they haven't built, there's nothing, I mean, there's an anticipation of a station right? But that hasn't actually been determined. So, I mean, I think for us, this is the exercise itself is what we're running into is the walls or the boundaries of kind of the futility of the way that we do transit. And we're asking for information that is unknown because there's complicating factors of different pots or whatever of competing projects, which goes, I mean, this wouldn't happen, honestly, highway projects are not funded this way. We're not pitting projects against each other and going against grants. You just get a pool of money and that's that. And so that's just where, that's not how we fund transit. We intentionally make it complicated and stupid because we don't actually believe in transit in this country. Okay, go ahead, Amy. And then I have a follow-up.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, the question is, have you communicated with the rail study folks that you want a platform nearby?
Yes. So we've been in collaboration with them. They know about, this proposed site for our project. We're certainly in close communication. Their interest is in having that connectivity as ours. Yes.
So Mark Bell, Hillsborough, I would say that, we're aware of what's going on in the Hillsborough station. So our passenger rail could also effectively work as a commuter rail to this. So we like the idea.
I have a question really quickly, and now I've lost it because there's so many questions. What's in the Duke easement? What's in there?
Yeah, large power lines.
And they're above ground?
Yes.
If they were underground, would this be as complicating?
That would certainly ease some of the complication.
Okay, so I will also say, because this is whatever, part of the issue is yet another entity that is an idiot that doesn't bury their power lines. So that then when we need things, it's another layer of complication. And I think that when we're here, we're all frustrated. I'm frustrated because I think a lot of us want questions to answers that we cannot get. And it goes back to, why other countries that are infinitely poorer than the United States have managed, oh my gosh, to make a decision and get mass transit all over their countries because they're committed and dedicated and they get it done. And that is not the orientation here. And so I just am stating it because we're on a transit board in a country that doesn't actually value transit. Any other questions? Can we get a board action? And then we would, I think some of the follow-up, just because I heard it, we would love the presentation. It was not in our packet. When can we expect y'all in front of us again? Because I think you can hear some consternation on this board.
I'm happy to come anytime to provide updates. Again, later this summer, we'll have more of the kind of conceptual layout and cost estimates to finalize that value engineering process. So happy to come back and give an update.
Would the board appreciate a more, like a closer to than the last time update on this? Seems like we would like that. Go ahead.
Well, a lot of this, but it seems like NEPA could change some of these details that people are getting caught up on. So like if that NEPA report's not in or if the NEPA considerations aren't there, I'm not sure how much can be advanced in thinking about these details. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so, kind of. So essentially, like, we have this site that again has been like identified in the MTP for all of these kind of transit lines coming together. We're right now in the process of documenting all those environmental impacts. We submit those impacts and we submit, you know, evidence that these boards have seen this site, are okay with it. We submit all of that to the FTA as part of that review. And of course, you know, if they come back and say, hey, we see that there are these impacts that you will need to mitigate, that becomes just part of our project scope and plan, is just mitigating as much as we can any of those environmental impacts that arise. Yeah.
Okay, so I think folks would like some kind of update sooner. That would be helpful, and we would like the presentation sent to us. Any other things that we want to make sure we get as a board? That I just want to make sure that I'm.
Oh, and there's the sort of like the analysis of the sort of different options, sort of some of the, yeah.
Happy to share that as well.
Perfect. Anything else? Okay.
Just to clarify, could you send those today?
Yes.
Thank you.
Our board action today is to approve the locally preferred alternative for Go Triangle's Triangle Mobility Hub.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, could I get a motion to adopt our consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Opposed? Oh.
No,
Okay, I was like, wait. Consent agenda passes. And then we have a few informational items. Hold on. Next up is item number 24, our biannual locally administered projects report. Good morning again.
Good morning again. I know I am at the end of a very long meeting, so I'm going to go rapid fire, and please feel free to interrupt me or stop me if you have questions. This is our biannual under locally funded project in Triangle West. As a reminder, this is something we do. We gave a report to you back in November. This is the June report. These are all projects that are administered by our local jurisdictions, by your staff. They are almost exclusively bike ped and transit projects. And these are funded using federal funding sources. They typically require 20% non-federal match. And then we work really closely with NCDOT staff to advise and oversee the expenditure of our funds. So just a little overview about that federal funding policy that we talked about earlier in the meeting that was initially adopted in 2021. That policy requires us, our members, to report on the progress of their projects that are funded with our funds twice a year. And this report, it also does include projects that were funded through SPOT and STI as well. And it includes some other funding sources that were competitive grant programs kind of outside of our call projects, like RAISE grants, for example. Typical project delivery steps, you're going to see projects that are in setup phase, projects that are in design or engineering phase,
projects that are in the right-of-way acquisition phase, construction, and then project closeout. Unfortunately, projects can sit and close out for a while. It can take a while to process all the paperwork required. And these are some of the federal funding sources. The addition that's a little bit new to this report is we're showing the total amount of federal funding that's allocated to projects in our program. So almost $180 million of federal funding are on projects that are included in this report. There are 51 total projects included in this report, and you can see the breakdown here on the slide. Almost every jurisdiction has at least one project. And then here's kind of a breakdown of the federal funding by agency. You can see about 57% of the funding in purple is with City of Durham. And then, next highest is probably Go Triangle, but this includes both the City of Durham and the Go Triangle funding includes projects that are funded with other federal fund sources, not necessarily through our call for projects. And then Chapel Hill is the next highest. That's the little red slice of the pie in there. Town of Cargo, 9 projects, a little less than $6 million in federal funding. And we've got some changes since the last report. We have a project that's in closeout, which we'd love to see, and a new project that's under construction with Morgan Creek Greenway. Chatham County has a project coming up in fiscal year 27, so not this year quite yet. They're still in the project setup phase for EV charging stations. Town of Chapel Hill's been making a lot of progress with their federally funded projects. They have 12 projects, a total of $22.3 million in federal funding. Since the last report, we have a North Estes Drive is in closeout. There are 3 projects under construction, and 3 in design engineering, and then a couple that are getting set up. City of Durham has 21 projects total, a little over $100 million in federal funds, and we have 4 projects under construction in the city. This project is jointly Durham County and being administered by North Carolina DOT. It's in the right-of-way acquisition phase, or it will be soon once the project finishes getting set up. That is $10.75 million for the Durham-Rossboro Retro project. And Go Triangle has 5 projects and $32 million in federal funding. We have had a lot of progress from these projects since the last report. Orange County Bus Stop Improvements is in closeout. We've got 2 projects under construction, and 1 in design engineering, and then the mobility hub you all just heard quite a bit about. Town of Hillsborough, there are 3 projects in the town, $7.2 million in federal funding. So we have 2 that are under construction, the Riverwalk Trail and Exchange Park Lane Bridge, and then 1 that is in the design engineering phase, that is the Hillsborough Rest Station. Orange County, 1 project, Orange Grove Road Sidewalk, still kind of getting set up with that one, but it will be in soon. RTP, a project coming up, I think next fiscal year, that is a little less than $1 million in federal funds for Dave's Drive bike path. And I do also want to share, we have a grant agreement in place for our big grant for $500,000 for the project prioritization pilot program, the 4P. So we will be kicking off Mobility Forward, our request for letters of intent soon, and getting a consultant under contract to get this one moving, which we're very excited about. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you so much. Our next informational item is our 2026 Triangle West Safety Report.
Good morning again, David Miller, along with Lucia Ciro from Triangle West, and we'll be sharing a presentation on our new 2026 annual regional safety reports. The action for this item is to receive the presentation and provide feedback. And so for this item, we'll just share a very brief background on Triangle West safety planning report. We'll highlight some safety planning at the state and regional level, provide a very brief regional crash analysis, talk about some updates to the safety strategies and actions that are found in our safety plan. And then we'll close it out by just sharing some upcoming safety events and processes to be on the lookout for. So here is a very brief timeline. So Triangle West was awarded a fiscal year 22 Safe Streets and Roads to All grant to help with the development of a regional Vision Zero action plan. We worked on this plan with our members, NCDOT, and community partners, and our board adopted this plan in April of 2025. Throughout this process, we continued to adopt our one-year safety targets, which is a federal requirement, and we also held two regional safety summits. And so we are just past 1 year since the adoption of our Vision Zero action plan. And so this report is a way to track the implementation of that plan, but also track progress towards our safety targets and goals. And so really quickly, as a reminder, here are our 1 year safety targets and then our mid and long-term goals. The targets were adopted by our board in January of this year. And then our mid and long-term goals were adopted as part of our Vision Zero action plan. This is to reduce all fatal and serious injury crashes by half by 2035, moving towards zero by 2050.
David, what's the fatality rate?
So that is the, going for a second,
Fatalities by 100 million?
Yeah,
That's right.
and it's calculated based on 100 million BMT and the number of fatalities in the MPO region. All right, so again, our safety report is a way to track the implementation of our plan and progress towards our safety targets and goals. And so the report is meant to be high level and accessible with a summary of the regional safety planning in our area and the regional crash analysis. So I'll turn it over to Lucia to share some of the regional crash analysis that is in our report.
Thank you, David. So NCDOT has a number of safety projects going on across the region. We have 3 that have been completed and we have 22 that are in design. You can see on the map that it is spread all across the region and it does represent around $10 million in safety investments. Additionally, we are seeing a continuing rise in traffic deaths, which is a concerning statistic and is trending in the opposite direction of what we're looking for. We are, however, in a bit of good news, seeing a decline in serious injuries, and so we hope that the number continues to go down. And in terms of economic impacts of crashes, we are estimating, based on NCDOT data, around $700 million in impacts. This includes property damage, the cost of EMS and first responders, as well as a number of other factors. And these charts should look familiar to you. We discussed them recently when we were setting our safety targets. They do reflect that we have never met our safety goals. And really the main takeaway here is that we need to make sure that safety is at the center of every transportation project that we discuss. And another important data point, we do see that passenger cars, which includes sedans and convertibles, are most often involved in severe crashes. Light trucks includes things like SUVs and other larger vehicles. And this data point is really showing some trends in the data. It does not necessarily show causation. And moving on, we are seeing that our pedestrian severe crashes in 2024 were some of the highest on record. So again, kind of trending in the opposite direction of what we're hoping for. And here we took some of our environmental justice data that we recently developed for the EJ report, and we combined it with some of our crash data, and we are finding that some of our most severe crashes are also happening in our most severe communities, or in our most vulnerable communities. And so we are, this is a situation that the TPO will be continuing to closely monitor. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to David.
All right, thank you. So based on the regional crash analysis that we see and shared, it's clear there's still a lot of work to do to make our roads and streets safer. And so I wanted to highlight the biggest portion of our report, and it is tied to our actions and strategies that are found in our Vision Zero action plan. So over the past several months, all of our local members and partners in NCDOT They've been sharing their safety updates that are tied to these actions and strategies. We've compiled and organized them here in our reports. I know we're short on time, so we won't go through all of these, but I wanted to highlight this very important large section in our report to show all the safety planning that is currently underway. And then finally, just to close out, just wanted to mention a few safety events and processes to be on the lookout for. So Triangle West recently surveyed our members to gauge interest in a TPO-led regional safety committee. We're currently reviewing that feedback and we're developing a plan forward. We'll also be holding 2 safety training opportunities for our members later this year, and this is in partnership with NCDOT. This is a complete streets training in September and a road safety audit course, likely happening sometime in October. We'll be holding our 3rd annual Regional Safety Summit with Capital Area MPO this year. And then looking ahead to 2027, we'll be conducting our annual target setting cycle in January and beginning the development of our next annual regional safety reports. So again, the action for this item is to receive the informational presentation and provide feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Thanks so much for the presentation. Okay, that brings us to the end. We have some recent news and article updates that have been attached, and then we are going to move into closed session. I'm going to let us take, I'm sure people need a little bit of a break before we come back, and it'll give staff the opportunity to, I guess the room down the hall is booked, right?
Right.
Yeah, so we'll just come back in here after we take a break.